Hello, Jamie. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
How has your day been?
It's been all right. Work wasn't crazy busy, but it dragged quite a bit. I do like tour guide work, so it's sometimes there's not anyone walking in the door, and you're just waiting there for someone to turn up. Yeah. How was your day?
Well, I was in the library the whole day,
Yeah.
waiting for my class, and then I came here straight after my class.
Nice.
So, what's the today's podcast about?
So we are talking about Ujwal's home country. hence
Nepal.
Yes. Hence the beautiful hat you're wearing today. Where
thank
did
you.
you say you got that hat from?
I got it from one of the market in Kathmandu, actually.
Right.
It's called Tamil.
Okay.
So that's where I got it from. So next time when you go there,
Yes.
please go there and buy something.
And you said it's Tibetan, right?
Yes, the design and the style and the color of this hat comes from our beautiful Mongolian culture, which
Okay.
comes from Tibet, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
All right.
So Nepal, for me, the first thing that comes to mind when I hear Nepal is Mount Everest.
Okay.
Second is Gurkha. And third, I'm thinking some relation to India, as in maybe the food.
Oh,
And
nice.
the food is beautiful. We went to a Nepalese restaurant a week or two ago, and it was mind blowing. It was gorgeous. What we had was gorgeous. What was it? Was it duck?
Yeah, it was duck and it was okra. Is they call it? We
Okra.
call it lady's finger.
Lady's finger.
Yeah, that's what we call in Nepal. Yeah, we don't call the okra. I learned the word okra when I came here. So, Everest. How come you know about the Everest?
Because you always see on the BBC News someone's climbing Mount Everest,
Okay.
and everyone knows that it's the biggest mountain in the world.
Tallest.
Is it
It's
biggest?
the same thing. You know, it's tallest mountain in the world, but
Is it not
same?
biggest? It might be the biggest.
Could
It's-
be. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Himalayas, they stretch across the whole of your country, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So how does it feel like growing up? I guess it's normal for you growing up in a country where you just see mountain views, right?
So it depends where you are in
Yeah.
the country. If you're in the plain, so our country, Nepal, in terms of geography, is divided in 3 different geographical regions. One is plain land,
Yeah.
and then we have hills, and then we have mountains.
Oh.
So the plain land goes up to like around 600 meters above sea level,
Okay.
and from there to 4,500 meters is the hill,
Yeah.
and from there to the height of the tallest mountain, 8848, is the mountain region.
Wow.
So if you're in the plain land, in many places you won't be able to see the mountains, but you will definitely be able to see the hills.
Okay.
So the tall hills,
Mm.
there are different ranges of hills as well. So you'll be able to see the tallest ones towering over the small ones,
Oh wow.
and it's most of them are covered in forest. But these days you can see lots of road networks being built in there, and because of that, it doesn't look as pretty as it used to before.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
So where's Kathmandu? Is that in the mountains then?
it's in between mountains and hills. I would say
Okay.
it's a valley, so it's
Yeah.
surrounded by all the hills.
Oh, okay.
But the nearest mountain is not that far away from the
Mm.
Kathmandu, for the capital as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So one interesting fact about the capital is that apparently it used to be lake, long time ago.
A lake.
Yeah, and there are some myths about who basically cut the lake so that the water would go out of it, and then people started living in the lakes,
So does
in
it
the lake bed.
does it not flood?
When it's heavy rain, it's not necessary it floods, but it's very easy to they call it water table. It's quite high up there,
Yeah.
and the soil, it's basically sedimentary soil,
Okay.
so you can actually see that it used to be part of lake, but no one knows how the water went out of it. There is a small part in southern valley. There is a small, so the river that flows through the middle of the valley, when it escapes the valley, there is a very small gorge through which it passes. So, and there have been myths, is that there was a person who came from Tibet, and they hacked it with a sword, and then
Wow.
the water gushed out, and
Wow.
it created its parts.
That's
and
a
all that.
beautiful story.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if it is any true, but that's
Yeah.
the story we go with, and yeah, that's the fact about the capital. And
Yeah.
the other thing is capital used to be called Nepal. Before it used to be called Kathmandu.
You mentioned this earlier off
Yeah.
camera. I
Yeah.
found that interesting. Like you said, your ancestors or like your relatives would call it Nepal when they're talking about going to the city.
Yeah, so you would if you go to very rural parts in Nepal, you will still find old people saying like, okay, where are you going? Where are you going? And if you say you're going to Kathmandu or capital, they'll say, oh, you're going to Nepal.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. It's
Yeah,
so.
I think it will be very rare to find those people
Yeah.
now, but it certainly was true when I was a kid.
But it just goes to show how different the world sees themselves in every country. Like we have this term country, but not everyone wants to give into those terms because for you and your family, this is the world you know, and then you also have this idea of what your nation should be. And I think, yeah, we take it for granted that we don't need to be so focused in what country we're from, you know.
It's definitely, I mean, we wear name of our country as our identity. I mean, certainly it does help you differentiate between different people, like,
Right.
make yourself unique in a group.
Yeah.
But then, well, it's just a name given by someone, and people from one country look like as if they are from another country. You can't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like within many European countries, you won't be able
Yeah.
to tell without listening what language they speak, where they are from.
Yeah.
So it's same with different parts of Nepal and India. Like you would not be able to tell if someone is from India or Nepal unless you hear them speak the language. And
Yeah.
even when you hear them speak the language, there is very large group of Nepali community in Darjeeling. I mean, all of them they used to be, it used to be part of Nepal before, and they still speak Nepali language.
Wow.
And they look like Nepali people as well.
Okay.
So when you speak with them, you will be even more confused if they are from India or Nepal.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and so yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we were going to talk about army, but maybe we'll come back to the army later.
Yeah.
Because I think we're on a really good point on culture right now.
Yeah.
And a question that I put a circle around is, why is national diversity so successful in Nepal? Because it seems like in this country, the UK, and we will talk about the UK in a later episode, but it seems that we've lost our sense of culture, whereas I find it quite beautiful that Nepal has all these different religions and all these different values, but they can still unite under their Nepalese faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unity in diversity is the term that we hear ever since we're a kid, and we do debates on it. We do multiple speeches on it. So we learn the importance of it through education and also by being involved with people from different religion or let's say a person from plain land will look different than person from mountain region. And so when they both work together, they find the similarities among them.
Okay.
And that helps you actually learn what does unity and diversity mean.
I see.
And when you look at our history of our country, how it was built, it was not only the people from plain or people from hilly region who made the country what it is now. It was all of us.
Oh, wow.
So the contribution for everyone, each and every one, is
Wow.
it was required in order for Nepal to be what it is now.
Yeah.
So yes, so unity and diversity.
There
is
must be
definitely a big thing.
there must be a country of strong walkers, you know, because they put, they had to put in the effort to walk up the hill. Maybe like most of the people were like, oh, we come to the mountains, we come to the hills, we're not going to go over there, you know.
Well, yes, trekking is very big part in Nepal now, especially among young youth. It is being very, very big part because they have enough money and enough resources to do that.
Okay.
But before that, like if you talk with any old Nepali person in Nepal, in any Nepalese, they would say, "Oh yeah, we had to walk miles to go to fetch water, or to go to school, or go to where they have like planted all the crops."
Right.
So the walking has always been.
They would say that when you're being ungrateful when you're a kid, right?
Oh yeah, they would definitely say, "Oh yeah, like we had to," like they would be like, "Oh, we had to walk miles to go to school. You don't have to go do that. You can."
Some
go on a
things
bus."
never change, right? Some things never change.
Yeah, I've heard that stories here.
That's
well.
universal. That's universal. That story of grandparents. When I was your age, I was doing 4 jobs and this and that, and I had a house. It's like, yeah, but how much were houses back in 1960?
Definitely.
Anyway.
Yeah. And so another interesting thing about the religion and all that is like, so there are many temples in Nepal where you would find the priest in temple from Buddhist religion, or it would be the other way around. And there are multiple stupas and monasteries in the valley and around the valley and all over the Nepal as well, where anyone is allowed to go. It's not like you don't have to be Buddhist in order to go there.
Wow.
You can be Hindu and still go there.
That's
and
great.
it's same in the Hindu temple as well.
Yeah.
And with the other religion like Christianity and Muslim. So those religion has been in Nepal for a very, very long time. Like the first Christian missionaries that we know of who were in Nepal was even before Nepal was a country. So when they're in 1768, so that's when the Nepal was formed as a country, Kingdom of Nepal.
Yeah.
When our king started conquering all the small kingdoms.
Yeah.
And at that time there was a Christian missionary who wrote the account of the invasion of capital, like which the city which is capital now, the invasion of Kathmandu by Prithviraj Saha, who was the king, who was the first king of our country.
Wow.
The founder of the country or the father of the nation.
Yeah.
So so Christianity has been there for a long time. And like I said, the name of the king, Prithviraj Saha, the surname, many people think that it has some relations with Muslim kings that used to be in India at the time. And so they were Koors before they were Sahas. So Saha is their surname now.
Yeah.
Like it was surname for the kings.
Yeah.
They used to be Koors before that.
Okay.
And the title Saha was given by one of the. It is said that it was given by one of the Muslim king from India. So that's how they are all related. And they knew the religion exists at that time as well. And so basically, our first king, he was not very big fan of the Christianity or any other religion.
What was he a fan of?
So at the time the saying goes, I think this is the saying in his book, which is called Dibya Upadesh. So it's the book that is based on his life, and many people say that he wrote by himself. So he said, with merchant comes the muskets, and with Bible comes the bayonet.
Oh.
So it's one of the saying that goes, and so because of that, Christianity and other religion were not really allowed to be preached to people for a long time.
Oh, okay. Because of the volatile nature of those, of the, what was it, the people introducing it?
Yes, so it was basically, it basically seemed like when the Bible starts coming to the country, then comes the East India Company.
Right, it's the missionary. I think it's the missionaries with the traders with the army.
Yes,
and this is actually, I don't want to drag this too off tangent, but this is what actually happened in Japan, which is why they had the 250-year period of isolation, is because they introduced Catholics into the area, and then they came with the traders who came with the politics, and the people were said, no, we don't want the politics, basically.
Yeah, definitely. The religion. Now Nepal is a secular country, but there was a point when it used to be Hindu kingdom, so it used to be called the last. Well, like you said before, we had the. It was
recent, but it's for people who don't realize, and maybe myself would be one of them. Is Nepal has changed a lot, even in the last 30 years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, and it was a what was it? A monarchy, right?
Yes.
Until the 1990s.
It was monarchy until 2007.
That's crazy.
So
2007. You had a king. Was it a king?
Yes.
Emperor.
It was a king. I still remember us going when we had to go to movie cinemas and all that. We had to stand up when the national anthem came up. And
is that not nostalgic in some way?
Because
I've never not had a monarch, and I'm not very royalist, but I think it would be a big impact on my life if suddenly one day they're like, yeah, we don't have a king anymore.
No, but at the time that king was not very famous. He was not very liked by many people.
I see.
Of course he was famous, but he was not liked by many people.
Right.
So our recent political condition that we are in Nepal, it starts in 2000. So in 2001 we had a royal massacre with the king, King Birendra. His family was massacred. All of his sons, his wife, and he himself, that's and with other people were killed. And many people say, if you look at any Western documentaries or something like that, it will show that it was the prince who killed the king.
Wow.
But many of the witnesses, they say the people looked like the prince, but they were wearing mask of the prince who killed them. So we don't really know who did that. And I mean, what I believe is, like, I do think there are few people in Nepal, mainly the politicians, who know what happened, but they will never say. And
you mean like the top people?
Top people, yes. And even the conspiracy goes as far as to say that it was CIA and even RAW, which is the CIA equivalent of India, involved in it.
Wow.
So we don't know. And so the massacre happens in 2001, in June 2001. And then his brother King Gyanendra becomes the king.
Mm.
So he, in 2002, he suspends the parliament and
Mm.
appoints his own government and then enforces the military rule. And when the reason he did that, we are not very clear why he did that, but one of the reasons could be attributed to the Maoist uprising that was going on in the country. So we were in the civil war period in Nepal, goes from 1996 until 2006, 2007.
Right.
So
about 10 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was still the Kingdom of Nepal at that time. Then the Nepal army was fighting against. So when you say civil war, it was not every Nepali fighting against one group of Nepali fighting against another group. It was like one political party and people who support that political party fighting against the army.
So who started the massacre then?
The massacre of the royal family.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Wow.
To be very frank, we don't know how it happened. Like,
that's crazy.
The proper information is not out there.
That's well, hopefully we find out.
Well,
hopefully
someone comes out and says who did that. And even if they come out, I mean, how can we believe it? Because it has been so long when that happened. So yeah, and so then the king, he rules until 2005 and 6, and at that time, so in 2005, basically he is unable to, the military is unable to stop the Maoist, and then he says, okay, I'm gonna have the direct rule now. So he suspends the government that he appointed himself, and then he starts direct rule.
That's a dangerous move, that one.
Yes.
That's a dangerous move.
And there were 7 top parties who did not like that. Like, there were many people who did not like that. And the 7 parties, they go to India, and then with the Maoists, they agree on this 12 points memorandum or something like that.
Okay.
And so that happened on 21st November 2006. And by then, 17,000 Nepali people had already died because of the civil war.
Wow.
And I can still remember, remember this one specific event when I was a kid. We would see the army coming to our houses and saying, "Is there any Maoist inside?"
They actually came to your houses?
Yeah, they would go to houses and ask, "Is there any Maoist in here?"
What would happen if there was a Maoist in your house?
Well, I mean, they would kill them,
they would have dragged them out
away or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yes. Well, if you watch the movies and documentaries, you would know what would happen to them. But I'm not really.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Definitely, you're gonna have to tell me about these.
Yeah. So I remember specifically, they would even ask us, kids, okay, have you seen a Maoist? Do you know anyone who is a Maoist? And not really. We don't know who is Maoist. Wow. We couldn't even tell the difference between Maoist and the army at one point.
So that was that. I don't mean to confuse it, but that wasn't linked to China or anything with Tibet at all, was it?
No,
there was no profiling of such, was there?
So basically, they were Maoist communist,
right?
But the ideology was the ideology of Mao. But there was no direct involvement of China at that point. In 2005, actually, the Chinese government actually helped the king of Nepal to fight against So they sent some of the arms, weapons and all that to fight against the Maoists. So that did happen. It's very weird.
For stability reasons, right? So their ideology went out the window, I guess. Yes. They wanted the stability in the region, probably.
Definitely. Maybe that could be the reason, or maybe they had their own interest in that. So then, king. So in 2006, so basically, then the 7 parties, when they signed the treaty, the uprising starts in the country. So everyone is out in the streets saying, we don't want the king anymore, or we want to have the election and all that.
Wow.
So the king says, okay, power shall return to the people. He says that, but no one actually believes it. And then he reinstates the House of Representatives, which was one of the major demand that the 7 parties and the Maoists were asking for. And then the House of Representatives, then the man who was the prime minister at that time, he writes a letter to UN saying, we want to have election. And so please come and take a look if it is being done in a proper way or not. And then they hold the election, and on 23rd December, I'm looking on my notes. If it seems very weird that I'm looking here, it's I'm looking on my notes. I want to be very specific with the dates.
He's trained. He's been doing his research. Yeah.
So on 23rd of December 2007, so they agreed to abolish the monarchy and become the country that we are now. And the name of our country now is, Nepal is a short name. The long name is Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal.
Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal.
Sorry, I had to. I didn't know that in my head, but I was a bit nervous.
So, The thing I'm wondering at this point is why don't I know so much about this? Maybe it could be because I'm ignorant and I haven't done my research, but that is part of the reason. But another part is that maybe my friends could tell me lots about, let's say, I don't know, Chinese history, or they could tell me lots about Russian history, but they can't give me any information on Nepalese history or even Indian history. Like, why is that so overlooked? And also, why is the Nepalese passport so weak? I think that seems very odd. That's a bit of a step. That's a bit of a different conversation. We'll get to that. But
I think,
why is it overlooked?
I think one of the reasons is like we're such a small country, and our political, geopolitical influence in other countries is not as high or as influential it used to be, or as other countries. Like India has very high geopolitical influence to the countries around it.
Oh, okay.
Well, apart from Pakistan.
Right.
So so Nepal, basically we have been a country whose largest export has been people. So when maybe if you give very strong passport to a country where the largest export is the people, they would start exporting every one of them. Maybe that could be the reason.
Oh,
but
that's interesting.
I'm not really sure why our passport is even weaker than North Korea. It doesn't make sense.
Weaker than North Korea.
Weaker than North Korea.
Nepalese passport.
Yeah. We're not as far away as from Afghanistan in terms of passport as well.
Wow.
But the other reason could be because of the civil war. Many people were basically trying to flee the country because it was very, very difficult to live. Because if any one of your neighbor had quarrel with you and they went to the army and said, okay, that person is Maoist, there was a high chance you would be punished for that.
Oh,
even though you were not Maoist.
Interesting.
So, but ever since Maoist came to, when 2007, when the election happened, Maoist did come to power as well as one of the parties. So now they are party. They are not like this rebel group who is trying to fight against the against the army or something like that.
Are they the main party, the Maoists?
Well, they like to claim that, but there are 3 different Maoist parties in our country now.
Wow.
So I wrote the name of all of them.
Yeah.
So all of their name is UML, UML, UML. Yeah. So
wow.
So one is Communist Party of Nepal, the Unified Marxist and Leninist. In Nepal we call them MLA. So they are not the main party.
Marx and Le is Lenin.
Yes. So they are not the main party who was involved in the Civil War. So it was Maoist party.
Maoist in the Civil War.
Their name is Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist Center.
Okay.
So we call them Maoist Center. So basically their ideology is Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, and left-wing nationalist. So it's lots of IST at the end. And the other one is the Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Socialist. This is fairly new party who became a party after they broke away from the UML, the MLA party. And their ideology is basically the same, but they support multi-party system and they favor socialist-oriented economy. I don't know what it means. I don't know if they know what it means because our country is not ran under communist ideology. So even though when communist leaders are in power, there is no communist ideology being implemented or communist rules being implemented. We're very far away from being a communist country, even though there are a communist party at the top. Yeah. And then we have Nepali Congress. It's also one of the parties. Yeah. Okay. So it's a democratic socialist party.
So a lot of socialism going on.
Yes.
In the name of socialism.
Some aspects of socialism has been implemented in Nepal. Okay. For example, the free education for everyone in government schools, free healthcare for everybody in the government hospitals and all that.
Well, that's great.
But the services they provide is so you would not want to use the services because they are not of any value or of any quality.
We wouldn't do that in the UK, would we?
Well, the NHS. Well, yeah, so Nepali Congress is the oldest party. Yeah. And the weird thing about it is would you ever imagine a communist party and a democratic party being in a coalition against another communist party?
It seems bizarre, but this is just the world of politics. Yes. It seems they have what we call dogma, meaning their pledge, what they say they're going to do, but then what they actually do is it's more likely a power struggle than it is their pledge to the people. Yeah, I think this is the crux issue of politics, really.
I would want to show you something. So these parties have been in power. Same parties have been in power for a very, very long time in Nepal now, and you would see a trend of basically same people being prime minister again and again and again. So the guy from the Nepali Congress Party, there is one guy who has been prime minister 5 times.
Wow.
And he has not been in power longer than 1.5 year
Mm.
in any one of those times.
Wow.
And same three people have repeatedly become prime minister twice in our country now. And now recently, I heard this news yesterday, the Communist and the Democratic Party who are in coalition are now broken apart now, apparently.
Wow.
And now, yeah, I don't know what's going on really. And
Sounds like all bureaucracy, really.
yeah, our country is ran by bureaucracy. If
Okay.
bureaucracy was not as strong as it is in Nepal, I think our country would be in tatters. It's like,
Wow.
can you imagine the government being changed in? We have had instances where the government changed in 60 days.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, like one person comes to the power, takes the oath, and
Yeah.
after a month they are gone. So
Right.
bureaucrats, and so one of the reason why the bureaucratic system in Nepal is so tedious is because of that as well, because they know that the person who is ruling the country is not going to be there long enough. So there is no sense of leadership. So it's basically, I'm on my own, I'll do what I like.
Yeah.
So
Sorry to interrupt you. Is this linked to Brahmin at all?
not in this sense.
Okay,
So not in this sense.
Not in this
So
sense,
the
okay.
caste system is in Nepal, but
Okay.
in bureaucracy, you will find there are more Brahmins or Kshetris in bureaucratic system of Nepal than the other
Okay.
caste, because that's why they had to introduce the quota system. So if you are from some specific caste, you have more chance of being in the bureaucracy because of the representation and all that. And I completely agree with it. I 100% agree with the quota system.
Okay.
And so when I was working in Nepal in the government,
Yes.
in the government office, so at that time I saw like how the bureaucracy actually works, and it's wild, to say the least. So I was working with a person who was one of the most sincere bureaucrat I've ever seen. So she wanted to become a bureaucrat so that she can remove all the politics away from it,
Wow.
or like remove the people taking bribes and all that. So taking bribe was not in her conscience. So she was there.
It's very pure.
Yeah, she was there to do her. She said it was a responsibility towards the country,
Wow.
and she was there to fulfill that responsibility. And I have seen with my own eyes and heard with my own ears people offering bribes to her and to me as well when we were working in the department.
Wow.
So it's very very wild.
You don't have to get into too personal details, but what sort of bribes were these?
Well, I mean, most of the times it would be monetary. They would say, okay, we can meet up after the office at this place.
Wow.
And so they would say in that way, or the time if they provide any services, they would say, okay, we provide this. You can come here and it would be for free.
How would they find you? Just like on the street or?
No, like when they are in
They
the
come
office.
into your office?
Yeah, when they come to your office and they have certain work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Like if it was genuine, we would do it. If it was not genuine, we would tell them to bring some documents or something like that. But when it was genuine, it used to be done in like 2 to 5 minutes. That was very rare, because getting that work done in administrative department is very rare in that quick.
Okay.
So they thought we're doing it because we expected something. We're just trying to be efficient and finish the work in due time. But yeah, and I was offered a helicopter ride from capital to my hometown, and I said, well, I prefer bus.
That's a bit of a sell. That's hilarious. What if you just had a nice helicopter? Or do you think that wasn't the case?
Well, but I think I would be scared a bit.
So there was definitely a motive, you think? It's not like it was just someone offering you a helicopter. Is it?
No. They were offering me a helicopter ride because
Yeah.
so that person came asking information about the municipality, and it's available in the website.
Okay.
So I literally told him it's available in the website, and he was like, "Can you show me?" And I showed him where it was available. And then he asked me, "Can you print it?" I said, "Sorry, we can't print it. Like, we only print the stuff that is needed for the office because, it's a government property." And he was like, "Okay, I'll print it later, but thank you for showing it. This is my card. We provide helicopter service. If you need any helicopter service to go."
Oh,
I'll
so
give it
you
for
would
free.
you would step out and then you'd be indebted, do you think, in some way?
Yeah, it's like if I just because I helped him, showed him where the information was, he thought I was expecting something from it.
I see.
But then I was like, well, that's the information available to everybody. How is the bureaucracy in here? Is it like that?
It's confusing. I think there's an issue with bureaucracy in this country too. Needless, I think. I genuinely don't know too much about it because I've never worked in any sort of those departments. Yeah.
Before I worked there as well, my thought was, so I had been in government offices a couple of times, and every time they ask you to go from this room to that room to that room to that room. the one reason why they ask you to do that is like you don't know where you're supposed to go. You're never taught, or like the signs are not clear. And if you want to get something signed from one person, you might think that would be in the administrative department, but it might be in the account department if it was anything related to finance, or if it is related to your property, it would be in the tax department. So like you would not know where they are, like where the offices are. So like how can so people don't know where they are, and the government officers, like the people who work there, they act like they're in so much stress. I mean, they are in so much stress, but they act like it's they can't understand why it is so hard for them not to know where to go. But it's very clear because the signs are not there, and there is no like layout of a government office. Like signs are not clear. Like a government office is in like a random building. Or like that.
I think this is ringing bells with me, and I do think the UK does have a bureaucracy problem similar, and I think it's especially the health service. Okay. And when you want to book an appointment, they make it incredibly difficult for you. And I don't know if that's lack of coordination or not interest maybe in young people. Maybe it's both. But each step of the way, they take you somewhere and you feel like you're further from your goal. Like they'll send you to call this number, and you call this number and they say contact your GP. And then you go on an app and you try and contact them, but you can't reach them. So there's loads of these barriers in the way, these unnecessary steps. And what you need really is someone to tell you face to face, right? You need that leadership, and I think maybe that's what these two cultures share, is that there's a lot of people who work, and they're very much like community, like everyone works far apart, like spread out, but no one's taking that like strong position like you would imagine an American might take, you know.
That is the similarity that I found here as well. Our bureaucracy is based on British bureaucratic system. Right. So like here you have councils, we have municipalities, and then you have like the boroughs, then we have the regions. Here you have the capital, and the capital looks over everything. So there also capital used to look over everything before we became federal. And now we have different, like 7 federal states. Which federal. So it doesn't make... We have states now in our country. Our country is smaller than states in other countries, but we need states within our country. I don't really understand why. So they have their own laws in every state, do they? It is newly formed, and the people who are at the state level, they don't have power, to be honest. And they don't have enough resources. Like you're dividing... Like our country is already going through... There's nothing to divide. You need centralized power. No, I mean... Local power is good. It was good, the local power. It was good. But there was no reason to have states, because we already have different regional areas before that, like different zones, different regions before that. So why did they build federal system? To be honest, I don't really know why it is like that. But it looks like, we're just trying to like have more politicians, like more political people being in the power, like supposed power. Right. It looks like that. I know there must be a reason behind it, but that reason has not been communicated with people enough. And then the work is not being done. So how we know like it was a good thing? It was. Yeah. I don't agree it was a good thing. It's like they've built loads of leaders, but they didn't have the base in the first place. Like they did not have the base, or they did not have enough economic resources or any other resources in order to implement that. I see. So. Yeah, so basically, I don't. Yeah. In India, the state system works because it was there during ever since like India became a country. Okay. But we did not have states. It's a very very new thing, having states. We had different regional groups and different zones. Yeah. Which could be basically turned into states if they wanted to, but they wanted to redraw the borders again, and they drew in such a way that it favors the parties, obviously, when the election comes. Okay. I think this is a tricky situation to get out of, and we're not going to solve it in a simple podcast. No. But maybe a segue, if you don't mind, we could talk about India now a bit, because you just mentioned India. I thought it would be a good time for us to discuss that place. Wow. My question is, when I say India, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, south of the border. Okay. I mean, India is south of the border. What's your second thought? Well, food, Narendra Modi. What about neighbours? Do you think words like neighbours or friends? They are our neighbours. Yeah, that's why I said south of the border. It's like south of the house. Oh, like if I walk far away from south of my house, I would reach India. Right. But do you see them as like your cousins? Because you have similar, to some extent, you have similarities, right? Yeah, definitely. We say similar cultural values in some way.
Mm.
So our cultures are definitely not same, but what we have is like because of the religion, because of the Hindu religion, certain aspects of the religion and certain aspects of the culture are similar. And when you look at our food, we eat rice and bread and all that, and they also eat rice and bread and all. The different, but in different part of India it is a bit different. But with the northern states like UP, Bihar, and especially with the Uttarakhand, which is basically like used to be part of Nepal before the Sugauli Treaty.
Okay.
And
the British treaty.
Yeah, the
That's
treaty
1800s.
Yeah, 1816.
Okay.
So yeah,
right.
so we have similarities on that basis, but we are very dissimilar in other ways as well. So because you will find that our languages are quite similar. We have similar alphabet, the way of writing.
It looks similar, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand either of them, but they have a pattern that looks similar, and you've showed me this before. Yeah.
So the writing is similar. We write in same way, basically same alphabets. We have similar words in many like sentence, like phrases and all that. We use them quite a lot, and our parent language is Sanskrit. So for Nepali language, the parent language is Sanskrit, and for the Hindi language, the parent language is Sanskrit.
Okay.
So we say that similarity as well.
Right.
And so India has always been like, we always went to India when Nepal needed help, kind of thing. I'm not saying to say that Nepal is any less than India or something like that, if it sounds in that way. What I'm saying is like, to every revolution to happen, where like people from Nepal had to go to India and then gather people and then like be educated enough, get all the resources they needed for the revolution.
It's the closest hub. It's the closest hub of people, right?
Yes.
Like India, how many people live in India?
1.5 billion. They're going to be 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion, and that's right on your doorstep, basically.
Yeah. On the south and on the north as well.
Yeah, China on the north, but then again, China's separated by all of that vast land. So it's India that touches the people the most, right?
Yeah. So China is insulated because of the mountains.
Right.
So because of the difficulty in geographics that the Nepal has in the north. It's very, very difficult to literally travel to Tibet or travel to China from there. So, and the main population center of China are very far away from Tibet as well. But in the south, the largest state in India, I think in terms of population is UP, which has like 300 million people.
Wow.
So it's literally south of the border to our country. And the other state which has similar population is also next to the border.
Yeah.
And so we are surrounded by India in 3 sides. Yeah. So our Nepal lies in between India and China. Yeah. And we're shaped like this, like a rectangle. Yeah. And so India is on like 3 sides, and there is China on the north.
Yeah. And you've got the northeastern Indians.
Yeah.
But they look kind of similar to Nepalese people.
Yes. So
are they similar culturally?
They speak the same language. We eat the same kind of food. We speak the same language. We listen to same music.
Oh, interesting.
So, and they like to call themselves Gurkha.
Really?
They like to call themselves Gurkhali, which I'm happy with it. I don't really mind it. And I like to call them Nepali as well.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
They are as much Nepali as any other Nepali. The only difference is like in their identity card, it doesn't say Nepali.
Wow.
But the name is the ones that you'd find in Nepal, everything. Yeah. And it's very, very beautiful. That part is I think British officers really like to live in Darjeeling because the weather was really, really nice. Like it was cool. It was not very cold or very hot. So you will go there and you will see like British architectural things in there, like the schools and all that. Wow. And so and lots of our basically like the singers and the writers, the people who are really deep in literature, they also come from that part of the world or part of the Nepal as well. So and so the relationship, if you ask any Indian or any Nepali person what is the relationship like between India and Nepal, they would say roti beti ka rishta. So it means the relationship between a bread and the stove.
And the what?
And the stove that you make a bread on.
Oh, okay.
So bread and the stove. Like without a stove you can't make the bread.
Stove.
Stove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
The bread and the stove. So you need which one's which?
So I don't really know which one is which. But that's the idiom that is used to say the roti beti ka rishta. It's not roti beti. The beti is not daughter. Turns out it's not daughter. It turns out it is bread and stove. So that's how the relationship between Nepal and India is like said in an idiom. And we have open border with India. So any Nepali person is freely allowed to like go to India. Like they do need identification. because lots of terrorism activities happen in India, and they kind of travel through Nepal. At some point, they had traveled through Nepal as well, which is being kind of issue right now in Nepal.
Right.
So, but yeah, hopefully it will not be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you need to have an identity card. But as long as you have that, you can go to any part of India. You don't need to apply for a visa or anything. You don't even need your passport. And it's the same way when they come from that part of.
So it's a special
India to Nepal,
conditions that you have with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So ever since, so basically, like even before Nepal had demarcated borders. Like the problem the East India Company had at the time with Nepal, and the reason they went in war with Nepal, basically Anglo-Nepal War happened.
The British went to war in India against the Nepalese.
It was like Nepal was expanding. So the borders were not demarcated, and British they found a country where like the border is not demarcated.
So they couldn't see the line, so they thought there's no country here, basically.
They thought like they were taking some of their villages with them, like they were encroaching in Indian land.
So
they thought that's what's going on.
Wow.
So yeah, we had always had open borders. Like many of the population, the majority of the population of Nepal comes from south. And they come from Indus Valley civilization, which is in India, Pakistan. Yeah. So we come from that part of the world. Our kings came from that part of the world. Yeah. So we can't really say like India and Nepal like very separate. We are separate because of the language. We are separate because we have different traditions and culture because of the mountains and the hills. But we are very similar in many different things. And the one beauty about Nepal and the relationship between India and Nepal is like in Nepal, Hindi is spoken as widely as Nepali is spoken.
Wow.
Like we have one state we call state number 1, which is called Madhya. I think it's state number 1 or 2. Sorry if I'm wrong. It's called Madhya Pradesh, which is like the state in like one of the lowlands in Nepal, and the culture is very very similar with the Indian other state across the border.
Yeah.
So the similarities in that part of Nepal with Indian culture is very very high. Like the food and the dressing way, and it's very high. But the more north you go, the more similarities with Tibet you will find.
Oh, right.
So that's how.
And the more people look different, right? Too. Like these people are from like the Indus civilization, whereas these people are more like the Mongolian. East Asia or Mongolia civilization. Yeah. Which is why I was saying earlier that they look similar to the northeast Indians.
Like the Nepali people or the other Nepali people you have met here, they look different than me. You said like when we met for the first time. You said like I look more Indian than Nepalese.
Well, the thing is, it's beautiful that you can have that connection. You know, I think so.
No, but yeah, I definitely find it very beautiful. It's like we have always grown up with diversity in our country, diversity in that sense, and in terms of religion and all that. There has been bad sides like the casteism and all that. Right. There has been there, and people, I would say like not everybody would agree saying like those people and like everyone is equal and all that. I bet you will find those kind of people in Nepal as well. But in terms of the holistic holistic attitude of Nepali people is like we all are same. It's like there is no difference. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
That's amazing. And it's reflected in your national anthem, right?
Yeah.
Made of hundreds of flowers.
Yeah.
And this, in 2016, was ranked the 3rd best national anthem by the BBC. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Like, do you sing national anthem every day in your school before the class starts?
We never sung it at school.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In every school, every college, I don't know about university, but colleges in Nepal, like before the class starts, like there is like 9:45, 10 o'clock, there would be national anthem. We go like this and sing the national anthem.
I only sung it when it was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. And if it were if it were a royal ceremony, let's say a wedding or something, or even Christmas Day, maybe some people will sing it. I had to sing it at school because it was the Queen's Jubilee. But she was old anyway. Yeah, we only had to sing it for the Queen, really. And I think that's because our Queen was so old, and I think people just loved the Queen more than they loved the royal family, which is why we sang the national anthem. But yeah, we never had to sing it really for any particular reason.
So do you see diversity and beauty in your national anthem? Like you said, you really liked Nepali national anthem because of the inclusive nature and everything.
Right. That's a good question, because I think the royal family in this country is what the national anthem's based on. Okay. Obviously, God save the Queen, God save the King. And I think those people are like heavenly people. They've been raised in an environment that's very safe, and they've been raised in a way to feel charitable and to do charitable things. So I think they're a good role model, but we don't really put power on them anyway in this country. The power goes straight to the government. So I think the problem in this country is that people are overly rationalised. People don't want to think about things like spirit and belief. They want to focus on things like government and things like bureaucracy and whatever. I think just go around in circles because we never connect on anything.
The one fascinating thing that I find about the royal family here is like that's one of the only cultural stuff that you have got remained in this country. It's like
that's why I didn't like it that your country got rid of the king. But then I heard the story and I realised the king was taking power all for himself, and I thought that's inevitable. You know, if your king does that, that's going to happen.
But if you go to different part of Nepal, you will find different cultural stuff going on. But here, but that's one of the good thing as well. It's like the diversity here has, like, you know, it has always been there. Like different people in this country have always been here.
This will be our later episode, by the way.
Yeah. So maybe because of that, like there are those stuff. But then you can enjoy the culture of our country because the culture from here is not so overwhelming.
Well, that's the thing, is that people like say, oh, the UK has this, that, and the other problems, and then they migrate to the UK, you know, because of its tolerance.
Yes, definitely.
You know, so it's like, what do you want? Do you want the like oneness, or do you want the diverseness?
But I would pick diverseness.
Yeah.
I mean, culture, it survives whenever there are people. The culture survives with the people. So as long as there are people, there will be people who associate with that culture and all that. So like there is a poem in Nepal, it says Nepali hami rahunla kaha Nepali no, right? So it translates to we Nepali, where we will live if there is no Nepal, and I would be like, we would always be there. Like the name of the Nepal the name of the Nepal should not dictate the fact that we are Nepalese. We are Nepali.
Wow.
Like, just for the fact that we are Nepali.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And to go back to the relationship with India now. Yeah. So basically, in 2015, we had massive earthquake in our country. Yeah. April 25, 7.8 Richter scale, like very, very like massive earthquake. Yeah. And so like around 10,000 people died nearly in that earthquake, and we were in like very, very bad situation. Lots of infrastructure were like destroyed, and the relief, it was very hard to give relief, like, you know, send relief to the people who actually needed it because they were in so remote places. And then at the same time, the Nepali government was also basically publishing the first, like one of the constitution of our country. And when they published the constitution, or when they, like, you know, stamped on the constitution, some political parties in the southern border area, they protested against it. So India saw that, and then they blocked the border. So they had the blockade against Nepal. So no fuel coming to the Nepal, no any relief that is sent from other countries.
Relief was what was needed.
Yes, coming from the other countries. No food coming through, no medicines coming through, so nothing coming through.
Was it the relief point that annoyed people?
It was basically, it was like we were hurt at the time because of the earthquake, and then the Modi government decides to basically block the borders. And the reason they gave was like, there is instability in the southern border area, and then they were the one who were fueling that border by going to those political parties and basically, like, you know, giving them incentives and all those things to do that. And another reason is like southern region was not hit that badly by the earthquake as well. So basically, so those were the thing, like because of that's the main point, like which changed the attitude of Nepali people against Indian government. Wow. Because we always knew that Indian government had influence in Nepali government, in Nepali parliament. They always had the influence because they are like our bigger border, and we import lots of stuff from them. Like we import 10-fold more stuff from them than we export to them. So like Nepal is highly, highly dependent on India for everything, basically, for every trade, for like finance and everything. We're very highly dependent on them. So they took the advantage of this, and because of this, like Nepali, like every Nepalese attitude towards Indian politics has been really sour, and I don't really blame them. And after that, like the relationship with China started getting better. Then it like in eyes of India, Nepal is going towards China, and I'm like, okay, we shared like a massive border with them. Why shouldn't we go with them? And so I would prefer having. It sounds very weird, but I would prefer having financial support from China than from India.
Do you know what?
It sounds very weird.
I somehow get what you mean, because I think China has a very, like, it has a bit of a clean face, as in they're doing really bad stuff.
Yeah.
The government are.
Yeah.
Domestic things are
Yeah.
problems. But the foreign policy, it doesn't seem too bad. It seems
As of
fairly
now, yeah.
transparent. It seems fairly transparent.
Yes. Like, if they are making something and if the government can't pay that money in certain years, they do say that, okay, you will have to give this on lease for this many years. So the government does know that, like, they will have to give back on that property or that infrastructure that they built
Yeah.
to China in lease for certain years, because it was already said before. The reason I said this is like, so now in India, so there is like this Hindu nationalist government in India, and because of that, like in Nepal we have different religion, and when that influence comes to Nepal, where people are trying to incite people, like emotions, like play with people's emotions in terms of, in order to get the votes and in order to support different people,
The majority culture, maybe.
Majority culture, like if they start doing that against Hindus and Buddhists and Muslims and all that, we will be destroyed. Our country is already in tatters in terms of economy and in terms of political situation as well. And when that comes to our country, we would be destroyed completely.
Do you think that's a threat?
I do think that is a threat, because the hint of this came a few years ago when there was one political leader who started talking about the birthplace of Ram and all that. And I was like, yes, we were happy. If you want to do research on those topics, like where the God was born and where where it started from, that's good. Do the research on that. But you don't have to say, okay, we are the leader, we are the party that started it.
Yeah.
Because then, okay, so what about the Gautam Buddha? Who is going to take the responsibility of who proved that Buddha was born in Nepal? Like, it will be another party? And like how...
Yeah. Why divide religions by parties?
Yes, yeah. So our country was divided in terms of caste at some point.
Right.
And still now, if you go to remote places or even in cities, you will find the remnants of that. And it took so long, struggles of so many people, blood, sweat of so many people to basically try to get rid of that, and now we're trying to have something else.
It seems like a game of status, and I think this is human. This is not just restricted to one country, right? How do humans solve this problem? Why are they so eager to put people in a pyramid?
So the identity thing, I think we are humanity is one people, and the earth is one country, and humanity is its people. It should be the thing that the earth is one country.
Yeah.
We're the only animals which are not allowed to cross, which are not allowed to travel because of the borders and all that. That we're the caged animal because of our passport and how strong our passport is. So it's very weird. It's like a bird can fly across the border and go to another
bird is
country.
literally free,
and we are not. And we think, and we claim that we are the dominant species in this world. Yeah. So that's the relationship with India, to tell you in short form.
Right.
But we enjoy Indian music, we enjoy Indian movies, food to some extent. Well, we do enjoy Indian food, and we are very friendly with Indian people, because
what's the best Indian food?
Biryani.
I knew you were going to say biryani. I knew you were going to say that.
Lamb biryani.
I knew
goat
it.
Biryani.
Everyone says biryani.
Oh, biryani is
Everyone
awesome,
says biryani.
This is like my top bucket list thing that I want to do. And if I were to go to India, I want to go to South India, Bangalore, and I want to have biryani in there. I think they do like this dum biryani or something in there. And I want to go to Kashmir and have they do like this wedding food that they make in Kashmir is like very lavish and very nice. So I want to try that as well.
Now I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. Yep. So that's Nepal.
Yeah. So what can we talk about?
Well, I'm basically expecting the questions from you.
Okay. Well, there's two things. One of them is because you actually asked me before we started to ask you this question, and I will ask you the question: is the coat of arms?
Oh wow!
What does that mean? The Nepalese coat of arms. So
in our coat of arms, you can see. I'll put this in a screen at some point. You can see the rhododendron flowers, which is our national flower. You can see the two hands going like this, which is like a hand of a woman and a man, which signifies the unity.
Oh, okay.
And you can see the plain land where the agriculture is grown, which is depicted by the like the wheat symbol of wheat or something like that, and you can see the hills and the mountains, and you can see our flag. Like we're one of very few countries whose flag is in the coat of arms as well.
Interesting.
And there is a sloka or something that is written in Sanskrit, which means basically, which translates in English as "Mother and Motherland is greater than heaven."
Mother and motherland is greater than heaven.
Yeah. So we're very proud, very proud people.
It's a good message of presence, I would say. It's a good way to avoid a utopia. Realize that the land you live on is what you need to care for. Don't care for this idea that you think is all the way up here, you know.
Well,
yeah.
that's a very interesting outlook. I really like that outlook.
Thanks.
Okay. That's a very interesting one. Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's one of the symbols that we have. Like you said, when I said Nepal, what comes to your mind? It's Mount Everest.
Yeah.
I think another thing is kukri that comes to your head.
Kukri. Yeah.
It's the half knife, half sword thing. It looks like that.
They're used for tree cutting?
Yeah, that is used for every day-to-day activity, like everything that needs cutting or chopping or like basically, like, chopping the animal or something like that. We use kukri. So it's like our national... And
they're combat knives too, aren't they?
Well, I mean, they were made combat knives because
right.
they're very easy to slash with.
Wow.
So they cut very deep, apparently.
So they were slashing... Who were they slashing with that? They were slashing...
No. Let's not go there. All right.
We know the history.
Well, yeah, I mean, the kukri is made famous by Gurkhas. And Gurkha... I think you know about this, the Gurkha army in British...
Is the Gurkha army, is that word the same as the historical empire?
Oh, yeah.
It's the same
yes,
word?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the historical place, like the main kingdom that the Prithvinaran Saha was born, and like, you know, his kingdom was called Gurkha.
Wow.
And so when he started expanding, he got to the valley, which is basically the capital city. So that used to be called Nepal. And it was seen as like this very lavish, like, you know, otherworldly place where everything is nice, like, you know, everyone is rich and all that. And because it had very nice access, trade routes with Tibet and in India, both of them. Yeah. And the kingdom there had been established for a long time as well. And because of that, it was quite rich in compared to other kingdoms.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to have that status, so he basically brought the kingdom from Gurkha to the Nepal, and like the whole country started being called Nepal after that. So that's how we get the Nepal.
Wow. So is it like... Is it the dominant culture? Is that Gurkha culture? What is Gurkha?
Well, I mean... Oh, Gurkha, in terms of army?
What's it mean? I don't know, like... What?
Well, Gurkha is a place. Yeah. Gurkha is a district.
It's a place.
In Nepal. It's a place in Nepal.
Oh, okay.
And where there is a Gurkha, like in a fort, where the king used to live back in the days, you would go and find that. But yeah, like every Nepali person would say they are Gurkhali, because it's like that's our origin story, you know. And so basically, for people who don't know, there is a regiment called Gurkha Regiment in the British Army, and those the people who are in that regiment are the young boys who are hired from Nepal, basically.
They're mercenaries.
I don't like to call them mercenaries, but they are technically mercenaries. It's like they're going away from one country to fight for another country, but they are not like private group of people who is... Because
it makes it seem like they're like without morals, maybe.
I mean, they are not without morals. So basically, it's not like a mercenary that you heard about, like in you know the Russian mercenaries.
Yeah, the
fighting
Wagner.
in Africa
Was
and
it
all
the Wagner?
They're
not like those people.
No.
They're
So they're basically a group of boys hired by selected by British Army in order to fight for their country, and the incentive is like basically the salary and all those things. So this goes back to 1814. So 1814, the Anglo-Nepal War starts. Yeah. So we have already said the reason why the Anglo-Nepal War starts, and the Anglo-Nepal War is concluded in 1816 when the Sugauli Treaty is signed. So it was signed in a place called Sugauli, so that's why it's
Sugauli Treaty of 1860.
1860.
Okay.
So the three main points in that treaty that it said is like, okay, the land which is conquered by East India Company will go back to East India Company. So the map of Nepal now, it used to be like 1/3 bigger than what it is now, basically. So we lost 1/3 land of Greater Nepal to the British East India Company at that time. And another thing is like they were given permission to hire the Gurkhas in their army because they fought very bravely.
The guerrilla, what was it you said? The guerrilla tactics.
They
stunned the British and they were impressed.
Yeah, and specifically in the war, the fight in the Battle of Nalapani, when that happened, there were 600 against 3,500.
Wow.
And those 600 gave them pretty tough fight. It's like
Jeez.
they were, basically every man, every woman, every children was fighting in that
That's
war.
crazy.
And like our Captain General, his name was Balabhadra Kumar, when he was basically, said by British, he's like, oh, we are trying to, deprive you of water and food and everything. Why don't you come and surrender? And he says, okay, yeah, I'm not going to surrender just because it says in a letter. I'll come to you and talk.
Yeah.
So he goes to the Captain General and goes and talks.
I mean, these are very brave men, and they have very high morals, and they love their people, and they're not like mercenaries who do things recklessly. But it's a real shame that, like, for example, so many died in the First World War under the British Empire, right?
Around 70,000 of them died in First World War.
Yeah.
But according to the British government, it's around 6,300.
Yeah,
but
that's
then,
insane.
But then 17,000 or around 10 to 17,000 of them died in a place called Luce in France in one day.
In France in one day.
Yeah, in one day. So
Wow.
how can it be less than that number? And so basically it was, imagine, like, you have never seen the kind of weapons that are like, trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And you are going like continents away from your country in the ship or in the airplane or whatever. And you are like, flying across the ocean and going to another country and then fighting in that country.
Yeah.
And you are fighting for good as well. You are fighting against the tyranny. You are fighting against the Hitler, or you can fighting against the Japanese in Burma. You are fighting against the tyranny that's going on there. So they like, I can't imagine that kind of sacrifice like me doing right now or like anyone else doing right now.
Yeah.
And you don't know the language, you don't know the culture. The people look completely different from what you look like, and you're going and fighting.
I think that is pure bravery. I genuinely think that is
it is bravery, and it's the loyalty as well, and that's the main reason why Gurkhas are like seen with such respect and all that is because of their loyalty and because of the bravery and because of how straightforward they are. They like in Nepal, when you ask them, it's like, okay, if you give a choice of a Nepal to basically betray like a country or like chop their head off, they would like choose to chop the head off than to betray the nation. So that's how they are. That's how we are, I would like to say.
Have you seen the in the city of Winchester? Have you seen the Gurkha Museum?
Oh wow, yeah. Oh,
I think it needs a bit of an update. What do you think?
It needs a bit more advertisement as well.
Yeah.
It's in like this secluded place where it's very hard to find as well, even if you go inside the place.
Actually, not to sound anti this country, someone who studied history, I like it to be as true to the point as possible. And I noticed one of the downfalls of this museum was that they often showed the British soldier as the leader of the group.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think they were the leader of the group. They were in sort of communication with them, and they made their own leaders.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were many basically Gurkha captains and all that, and so First World War, Second World War, many of them they sacrificed themselves for the for British, like a fight from British India, and then they go back to their country without any pension or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then when the partition between India and Pakistan happened, so it gave India the opportunity to British India the opportunity to get rid of some of the Gurkhas, because it was hard for them to basically pay or basically provide them with the resources. So 6 of the battalions were left with Indian Army, and 4 of the battalions were chosen by the British British Army. Sorry.
Wow.
And then those 6 battalions, that's why you will find Gurkha Army in Indian Army as well. The Gurkha Regiment in Indian Army, in British Army. You will also find them in Singapore Police, in Brunei.
Really? And Singapore Police,
and you will also find them in Brunei. Like they have special guards in Brunei.
Wow.
So the Gurkhas are basically we are in many places than we actually know of.
It's been an eye-opening time for me.
No, it's been pleasure doing this research and trying to learn about my country. Actually, I mean, our history is very dense. I mean, it's like, we always hear history of Europe and all the countries, so it dates back to 1,000 years or something like that. And if we look in with very keen eyes, I think we'll find our history going back that old as well.
Awesome.
Yes. So at the end, I would like to say what we Nepali are. So we Nepalese people, or as I would like to call ourselves, Nepali. We are very humble people. We believe in unity and diversity. We respect everyone's culture, the way of life. We are simple and humble. We are proud, we are brave, and we'll Bear the fire, but not the injustice. We'll endure the hatred, but not the humiliation. You can chop off our head, we'll bear that, but we won't endure the injustice by the outsiders. Our chest is made up of mountains, and the rivers flow through our veins. I'm that son of Nepal who will never bow down. Who will bow down but never break. Jai Nepali. Thank you. Thank you for... So yeah, I'm really looking forward to next episode, which will be in...
So this one, all about Nepal. Next episode, all about the UK.
So hopefully you'll be prepared for that. It was very stressful for me, but I'm very. It has been a pleasure. So thank you everybody for listening to us.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.